Hey guys, tonight we're going to tear open the fabric of time itself and step into a world that would make your darkest nightmares seem like bedtime stories. We're traveling back further than recorded history, further than the first cities, to a frozen planet where humanity wore a different face. Imagine we are 50,000 years in the past. You stand on a continent you would barely recognize. This is Europe, but it's a savage world of endless winter. A crushing weight of ice, 3 kilometers thick in places, has devoured the northern lands. And where the ice relents, the earth is a barren wasteland. A wind-swept graveyard of frozen tundra stretches from what will one day be the shores of Britain all the way to the steppes of Russia. An ocean of dead grass and permafrost beneath a sky that never seems to brighten. But in this desolate emptiness, there is life. We are focusing on a refuge, a sheltered valley in what is now southern France. And here, a different kind of human, a species that has ruled this frozen hell for 250,000 years, scans the horizon with knowing eyes. Over countless millennia, they have adapted, they have killed, they have endured apocalyptic climate catastrophes, becoming the absolute masters of their icebound domain. But something new stirs in the distance, carried on the eastern wind. A tall alien people are coming, moving through the frozen forests like shadows. So what happened when these two species of human finally collided? Was it a peaceful exchange, a merging of worlds, or was it the spark that ignited the longest and most savage war in human history? And who were these mysterious giants who would eventually devour the world? Thanks to groundbreaking discoveries in genetics and archaeology, tonight we will descend into the deepest shadows of the human story together to uncover the truth. Frankly, if you were dropped into this landscape without preparation, the bone-crushing cold would turn you into a frozen corpse before you could even process what a cave hyena sounds like. So before we begin this journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely value what I create here. That simple action sends a powerful message to the algorithm that long-form, serious educational content still has a place, and to me, it means everything. Thank you for helping this channel continue to grow. I'm always fascinated to see where you're all watching from. Let me know in the comments what part of the world you're in and what time it is for you right now. Now, dim the lights. Maybe put on some headphones for that immersive experience. And let's descend into tonight's journey together. Your world for now is one of stone and shadow. You are crouched at the entrance of a rock shelter high above a winding river. This valley, with its natural fortifications and abundant prey, is a precious sanctuary in the vast, hostile tundra. It's a vertical landscape of safety stacked against a horizontal world of death. The sun, even at its highest point, feels weak and distant, throwing long twisted shadows that creep across the valley floor like living things. The air is sharp and so cold that each breath feels like knives in your lungs. But you are built for this. Your people have inhabited this land for generations beyond memory. This is the approach to what future scientists will call the last glacial maximum, a period of such devastating cold that monstrous ice sheets will eventually consume much of the northern world. But for you, it is simply existence. You are one of the original people, the first humans of this continent. Thousands of years from now, they will call your kind Neanderthal. A name borrowed from a valley in a distant land. But you don't know that. You know the texture of every stone, the cry of every creature, the path of every animal. Your body is a miracle of cold adaptation, compact, incredibly muscular limbs to preserve heat, a barrel chest containing massive lungs to oxygenate your dense blood, and a broad nose to warm the killing air before it can freeze your insides. You are not some primitive, mindless brute. You are a supremely successful human, the result of 10,000 generations of survivors. Your kind has survived ice ages that would have annihilated weaker species. This world of ice is your empire, and you know every inch of it. The world speaks through scent, a language more ancient than speech. There's the clean, sharp smell of frost on the wind, the damp mineral scent of the cave walls, the heavy musk of the mammoth herd far below, and the iron smell of blood when the hunt succeeds. This is the familiar orchestra of your life, but lately something has changed. A subtle disturbance in the pattern. The caribou herds have been behaving strangely, disturbed by something unfamiliar, and from the east, a new scent arrives on the wind. It's the smell of a different fire burning different wood, the smell of strange bodies, strange food, a different way of existing. It's the smell of intruders through the skeletal trees at the valley's edge. You see them. A group of impossibly tall, unnaturally thin figures, moving with an eerie, fluid grace that seems wrong for this frozen world. They are tracking the herds just as you do, but they are completely alien. A new presence has entered your world, and you sense with a primal instinct you cannot name that everything is about to change forever. You remain hidden, concealed behind the rough bark of a twisted pine, a silent watcher studying these impossible creatures. They move with a disturbing confidence, their long legs devouring distance with an easy stride. Everything about them is elongated, stretched, as if they were molded by different laws of nature. Where your people are built close to the ground, solid and compact like boulders, these newcomers are tall like dead trees, their limbs slender and whip-like. The tallest of their males towers a full head above your strongest warrior, a walking spear of a creature who seems to pierce the grey sky. It's this height that is so deeply unsettling. They are a living violation of the horizontal world of the tundra, a world that rewards staying low, hugging the earth for warmth and stability. You realize that if your people were to stand beside them, you would look like children in their presence. This is the first seed of a perception that will echo through time, the first whisper of giants walking among lesser beings. As they move closer to an open area, you can see their faces, and the strangeness intensifies. Theirs are faces of sharp angles and bone, disturbingly flat. Their foreheads are not like yours, which slope back from a heavy protective ridge above the eyes. Theirs rise up shockingly high and vertical, a sheer wall of bone beneath which their eyes sit deep and shadowed, and below their mouths they possess something you've never seen on a human before, a sharp, protruding chin. Your own jaw is a solid, rounded curve of bone, powerful and functional. Theirs seems fragile, marked by this strange, bony projection. It's a face designed for subtlety, for nuance, for countless tiny expressions you don't recognize. You are looking at a fundamentally different species of human, and a cold fist of dread tightens in your stomach. That high, vertical forehead is more than just appearance. It is the outer shell of a different kind of brain. Scientific evidence from fossilized skulls confirms that this skull shape, the one you're witnessing for the first time, houses a larger and more complex frontal lobe. This is the brain's master planner, the center of sophisticated planning, extensive social networking, and abstract symbolic thinking. While you can plan a hunt for the next day, they might be contemplating the next moon, the next year, the next decade. While you know your clan intimately, they might be capable of maintaining a mental database of hundreds of individuals, weaving an intricate social web of allies and enemies that spans vast distances. You are looking at a brain that is hardwired for the future, for possibilities. A brain that will eventually create art in the darkness and map the heavens. Then you hear them communicate, and the final disturbing piece falls into place. Your own language is powerful, an effective instrument for communication, rich with the sounds of your environment. It's likely more guttural, rooted in the throat and chest, shaped by a voice box positioned lower in the neck. The sounds these newcomers produce are completely foreign. Their speech is a rapid, flowing river of vowels and consonants you've never encountered. There are sharp, clicking sounds, soft whistling notes and rising melodic tones that flow like water. Their higher larynx and different mouth structure allow them to generate a stunning variety of distinct sounds, a vast acoustic palette for constructing a language of breathtaking complexity. It's not just that you don't understand their words, you barely recognize it as language at all. It is a torrent of noise, elaborate and bewildering. Anthropologists continue to debate whether the anatomical differences in vocal anatomy truly gave Homo sapiens a decisive linguistic advantage over Neanderthals. But to you, hidden in the frozen stillness, it sounds like the chattering of a new and dangerous force of nature that has just invaded your quiet, ordered world. These tall strangers are not born of this ice. Their origin lies thousands of miles to the south, beneath a sun you have only known as a pale, weak disk. Their ancestors and your own share a common root, forged in the hot, vibrant territories of Africa. They are the inheritors of a wandering spirit, a fundamental drive to discover what lies beyond the next ridge. You are witnessing a great wave of humanity that has spent millennia forcing its way out of its ancestral continent, a journey of incredible suffering and relentless adaptation. Your forebears crossed deserts that would make this frozen wasteland seem merciful, navigated coastlines and mastered the secrets of hundreds of different environments. This is not their first unknown world. They are veteran survivors, carrying with them the accumulated wisdom of countless generations of explorers. This deep history of migration is inscribed in their very bones. Your tall, lean frame, which appears so misplaced here among the glaciers, is a profound evolutionary memory of their African origins. That body design is a biological cooling system, exquisitely engineered to shed heat and maintain temperature while chasing prey under a merciless sun. In fact, some scientists support the endurance running hypothesis, the concept that their ancestors became apex predators, not through raw power, but by being the greatest long-distance runners on the planet. They would track and tirelessly pursue a large animal for hours in the brutal midday heat until the creature, unable to sweat as effectively, died from heat exhaustion. Their long legs, their elastic tendons, their nearly hairless bodies, it's the machinery of a persistence hunter. But here, in this world of lethal cold, that efficient cooling system has become a death sentence. Every inch of exposed skin, every long limb is a surface from which vital body heat can be stolen by the freezing wind. Their survival here is a contradiction. It depends not on their body's fitness for the cold, but on their mind's capacity to transcend their body's weaknesses. You are not just a single lost group of wanderers, you are the leading edge of a slow but inevitable wave. The genetic evidence is definitive. All modern humans living outside of Africa today trace their lineage to a relatively small founding population that began its great exodus around 60 to 70,000 years ago. For millennia, their numbers have been increasing, spreading, forcing into new lands. Now they have reached the western frontier of the great Eurasian continent, and they are arriving in numbers this land has never witnessed. The native Neanderthals exist in small, isolated clans, their population constrained by the savage realities of the Ice Age. These newcomers, however, are arriving in a constant flow, a demographic flood that will slowly but inevitably begin to occupy the empty territories on the map and then start to encroach on the spaces that are already claimed. At the core of their success and their greatest weakness is the organ inside their high-domed skull. Their large brain is a ravenous beast, a demanding parasite. It constitutes only about 2% of their body weight, but it devours a shocking 20% of their caloric intake. It is the most metabolically costly tissue in their body, and it requires constant high-quality fuel. This is the engine that propels them. It compels them to be a more efficient, more ruthless, and more inventive hunter. They cannot afford a stretch of unsuccessful hunts. They cannot afford to squander a single calorie. This constant gnawing hunger of the brain is what drove their ancestors to create new tools, new tactics, and new social structures. It is the burden that makes them brilliant. It is the curse that will drive them into direct conflict with the other humans who already claim this frozen land as home. Because on the Ice Age tundra, there is only so much high-energy food available. So let's examine this body you inhabit, this new human form moving through the ancient European wilderness. The term giant might seem like hyperbole, a descent into mythology. You are not, after all, a mythological being 30 feet tall, but in the context of your world, the term is disturbingly accurate. Imagine a modern person of average height, perhaps 5'9", standing next to a powerfully constructed professional athlete who is 6'7". The difference is not just stature, it is a fundamental difference in presence, in reach, in the sheer volume of space they command. This is the kind of contrast you represent to the native Neanderthals. Your males regularly stand close to 6 feet tall with some skeletal remains suggesting heights of 6'3" or greater. The Neanderthal male, by comparison, averages around 5'5". You dominate them physically, a biological fact that would have had an immediate and profound psychological effect on any encounter. But your size is not confined to your height. It's in your mass. Your bones themselves are different from a modern human's. They are thicker, wider, and significantly denser. If you were to examine a fossilized femur from one of your people and one from a contemporary athlete, yours would be heavier, more substantial, with thicker cortical bone. The scientific evidence for this is overwhelming, visible in discoveries like the original specimen, Cro-Magnon one, the skeleton of an older individual found in a French rock shelter. Despite his advanced age, his bones were remarkably robust, a testament to a lifetime of extreme physical demands. When scientists analyze cross-sections of these bones, they resemble the bones of modern athletes who participate in high-impact, weight-bearing activities, only far more pronounced. Your skeleton is a biological framework constructed to endure tremendous forces. These bones are the foundations for a muscular system of terrifying strength. Archaeologists can read the phantom of your muscles on your skeleton because where powerful muscles attach to bone, they leave rough areas and prominent ridges. Your fossilized remains reveal a story of breathtaking power. Your shoulder blades and collarbones display attachment points for chest and shoulder muscles that would have allowed you to hurl a spear with devastating force. Your leg bones, particularly your thigh bone and shin bone, show evidence of thigh and calf muscles capable of producing explosive power for sprinting across rough terrain and the stamina to pursue herds for days. It has been characterized as an excessive level of strength, a body constructed not just to endure the daily challenges, but to survive the absolute worst possible scenarios. And then there is your face with that strange and distinctive feature, your chin. Of all human ancestors, only your species, Homo sapiens, possesses a true protruding chin. Its function is a fascinating enigma. One prominent theory suggests it has nothing to do with combat or aesthetics, but everything to do with the unique pressures of your existence. The chin may function as a subtle reinforcement, a small structural support to help your lower jaw resist the complex forces generated by chewing difficult foods, and perhaps more critically, by the elaborate muscle movements required for sophisticated speech. It is a quiet, bony witness to the new kind of life you are living and the new kind of language you are speaking. This combination of size and strength raises a fascinating question, and paleoanthropologists continue to debate the primary cause of this robusticity. Was it purely from an extremely demanding lifestyle, or were there genetic factors that made them naturally more powerful than other hominins? Were you born with this capacity, or did the merciless world of the Ice Age forge it into your very skeleton? The truth, most likely, is a deep and inseparable interaction between the two. This powerful body you possess is not a promise of a long or comfortable life. In fact, it's a requirement for a life that is almost certain to be brief, agonizing, and violent. Your skeleton, which appears so indestructible, is in truth a chronicle of near-death experiences. Few of your people will survive past the age of 40, many won't reach 30. Childhood is hazardous, and adulthood is a daily wager against starvation, predation, and trauma. The world you occupy is one of constant, brutal physical damage, and your bones are the record keepers. When archaeologists excavate the remains of your people, they are deciphering the autobiographies of survivors written in healed breaks and damaged bone. There is a striking and frankly horrifying pattern to these injuries. Your skeleton and that of your Neanderthal relatives shows an overwhelming concentration of trauma to the head, neck, and upper torso. There are skulls with healed, compressed fractures from violent impacts, collarbones that were shattered and poorly mended, and arms that were broken and healed at irregular angles. The catalogue continues: ribs fractured, spine crushed, hands destroyed. For years, scientists were struck by how specific this pattern was, and they searched for a modern parallel. They discovered one in a shocking place: the medical files of professional rodeo competitors. The injury patterns on both Neanderthal and early modern human skeletons are remarkably similar to those of modern professional rodeo riders, people who voluntarily mount the backs of enraged multi-ton bulls and horses. This tells us with absolute clarity that your method of hunting was not a safe, distant activity. It was an intimate, brutal, and extremely dangerous operation involving regular close-quarters confrontations with massive, terrified animals that could gore, crush, or throw you through the air with a movement of their head. Your very existence is a testament not just to your own resilience, but to the power of your community. Let's return to that famous skeleton, the Old Man of Cro-Magnon. He survived to what was for your era a remarkable old age, but his body was devastated. Several of his neck vertebrae were fused together, a condition that would have caused him constant pain and severely restricted his mobility. He couldn't have rotated his head properly. His jaw was infected with disease. Most significantly, his skull shows evidence of a severe fungal infection that likely impaired his balance and hearing. This was not an individual who could have participated in the demands of the hunt. He would have been a burden on the move, slow and defenseless. The only reason he reached old age is that his people sustained him. This evidence of compassion is one of the most profoundly human discoveries we can make in the deep past. To survive a severe fracture or a critical head injury in a world without modern medicine, you need others. You need someone to hunt for you, to provide you with food and water. You need someone to defend you from predators while you are helpless. You need them to tend your wounds and help you maintain warmth by the fire. This social safety net, this willingness to sacrifice for the collective good and care for the vulnerable is one of your most powerful advantages. It speaks to a profound sense of social unity and compassion, and this care could be surprisingly advanced. At other, slightly later sites, archaeologists have discovered teeth with clear evidence of having been treated. Evidence exists of drilled teeth from as far back as 14,000 years ago, where a tiny flint drill was used to meticulously scrape out infected cavities. Imagine the level of trust and compassion involved in permitting a fellow human to perform such an intimate and painful procedure. It reveals that you did not simply abandon those who were injured. You actively attempted to heal them. That powerful, resilient body and the complex community that sustains it are all powered by one thing: calories, a staggering quantity of them. You exist in a state of perpetual ravenous hunger, a caloric requirement that modern humans can scarcely comprehend. Your large, muscular body is a furnace that must be continuously fed just to maintain warmth in the killing cold, and hovering over it all is the insatiable hunger of your large brain, demanding its share of high-energy glucose. You are, out of absolute necessity, an extreme carnivore. Plant foods are limited for most of the year, and they simply don't deliver the concentrated energy, the fat, and the protein you require to survive. Your attention is fixed on the largest, fattest, most calorie-dense targets on the landscape, the megafauna. And there is no greater prize than the woolly mammoth. To you, a mammoth is not just an animal. It's a walking resource depot, a comprehensive solution for survival. A single adult mammoth can weigh over 6 tons, yielding thousands of pounds of meat that can sustain your entire clan for weeks. But the meat is almost a secondary reward. The real prize is the fat. Thick layers of rich, energy-dense fat supply the fuel you need to survive the long, dark winters. Inside the enormous bones is a treasure of marrow, a creamy, nutrient-rich substance that is one of the most valued foods in your world. The thick, shaggy hide can be transformed into warm clothing or the covering for a dwelling. Even the bones and tusks are a critical resource, used to construct your huts, carve into implements, or shape into art. The mammoth is life itself. We know this isn't just theory thanks to a remarkable scientific method that allows us to read your diet directly from your bones. The scientific evidence comes from isotope analysis. The principle is straightforward. You are what you eat. The chemical elements from the food you consume, specifically nitrogen and carbon, are incorporated into your bones as they develop. By extracting a tiny sample of a fossilized human bone and analyzing the ratio of different isotopes, scientists can determine your position in the food web with remarkable precision. And the results for your people are unambiguous. The isotopic signatures show that you were apex carnivores, obtaining the vast majority of your protein from large terrestrial herbivores like the mammoth, the woolly rhinoceros, the bison, and the wild horse. But this doesn't mean your diet was limited. You are an adaptable and opportunistic omnivore, not a selective eater. You challenge the popular myth of the caveman diet being exclusively red meat. You understand the cycles of your world. You know when the salmon fill the rivers during their annual spawning migrations, and you are there with nets and spears to harvest them in enormous quantities, smoking and preserving the flesh for storage. You hunt wild birds, collect eggs from cliff nests, and you have a comprehensive knowledge of the local plant life. In the brief, intense summer, you gather berries, edible roots, and mushrooms. You know which leaves are useful for medicine and which can be used as flavoring. Your survival depends on this adaptability, and while your dependence on megafauna is undeniable, your relationship with the largest of them all, the mammoth, remains a subject of intense debate. Archaeologists argue about the extent to which Cro-Magnons actively hunted mammoths versus scavenging them. While hunting is confirmed, bringing down a full-grown mammoth would have been an extraordinarily dangerous, high-risk, high-reward undertaking. It might have been a once-in-a-generation event, a confrontation of strategy and courage against a living mountain of muscle and bone. That relentless pursuit of high-energy food is not just sustaining your muscles, it is powering a revolution. The most powerful weapon you possess, the tool that will ultimately allow you to dominate the planet, is not made of stone or bone. It is the 3-pound universe of electrified tissue and fat inside your skull. Around 50,000 years ago, somewhere in the long history of our species, a light activated. Archaeologists call it the Upper Paleolithic Revolution, a moment when the human mind seems to awaken to a completely new set of abilities. It's an eruption of creativity, innovation, and most critically, symbolic thought. You are not just a clever ape anymore. You are a mind becoming aware of itself. A key component of this new consciousness is the ability to think across time. Your mind is no longer anchored to the present moment. You can mentally journey. You can project your thoughts backward into the distant past of your ancestors, learning from their victories and their failures. You can remember not just where the herd was yesterday, but where it was this time last year and the year before that. You can construct a complex, layered map of your world in your mind. A map not just of locations, but of seasons and patterns. And crucially, you can project your thoughts into the future. You are not just planning your next meal. You are planning for the next winter. You are deciding where to store food, which shelters to use when the snows arrive, and which alliances you will need to cultivate to see your children through the hard times. This mental time travel unlocks the most powerful cognitive tool of all, the power of hypothetical thinking. This is the birth of abstract thought, the ability to think about things that are not immediately present. What if we tried to hunt differently? What if we constructed a better shelter? What lies beyond that mountain range? This ability extends beyond the practical. It allows you to imagine a spirit world, to wonder about the meaning of the stars, to create gods and monsters in the territory of your imagination. It allows you to define who you are, to have a personal identity, to understand your place within a complex network of social relationships, kinship, friendship, rivalry, and love. This period witnesses the first widespread, undisputed evidence of art, complex burials, personal ornaments, and regionally distinct tool cultures, all indicating a new level of cognitive function. These are not just objects, they are the fossilized remains of abstract ideas. Your complex language, which we discussed before, is the operating system for this new mind. It's not just for communicating warnings or indicating food. It is a tool for thinking. Language allows you to give a name to an abstract concept like yesterday or honor, and in doing so makes it real and transmissible. It allows you to weave together complex ideas to tell stories that carry essential information about your culture, your history, and your values. It is the invisible network that connects you to your fellow humans, allowing you to cooperate with a level of flexibility and on a scale that no other animal can achieve. And this knowledge is cumulative. One of the most powerful theories for your success is the grandmother hypothesis. This idea proposes that by living longer, specifically with females surviving well past their reproductive years, your groups gained a crucial advantage. These grandmothers became living archives, repositories of decades of knowledge about plants, medicine, social dynamics, and child rearing, which they could transmit, ensuring that each new generation didn't have to start from nothing. They were the foundation of your society and the guardians of your collective memory. This new mind of yours demands new hands and a new way of shaping the world around you. Your cognitive leap is accompanied by a technological one, a revolution in how you create and use tools. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Neanderthals have relied on their Mysterian toolkit, a collection of functional but conservative tools, primarily flakes struck from a core. Their iconic tool is the hand axe, a versatile, multi-purpose teardrop of stone. You, however, have brought something completely new to the equation. The signature of your culture is the blade. You have perfected a method of preparing a cylindrical stone core and then with a single precise strike, removing a long, slender, impossibly sharp blade of flint. From a single core, you can generate dozens of these standardized razor-sharp blanks. It's an assembly line for producing cutting edges, a method so efficient it approaches artistry. This efficiency enables something revolutionary: specialization. The Neanderthal toolkit is like a single, reliable multi-tool. Yours is a complete workshop with a specific instrument for every imaginable task. Some of your blades are left as they are, perfect disposable scalpels for butchering an animal. Others you carefully modify. You create chisel-tipped blades called burins, perfect for engraving fine lines into bone or antler. You shape rounded end scrapers for the laborious task of scraping fat and tissue from animal hides. You intentionally blunt one edge of a blade, a technique called backing, to create a safe grip for your finger, effectively inventing the first true knives that can be held and used with pressure. You are not just making tools, you are making tools to make tools. This is a level of foresight and precision that represents a quantum leap in technology. Nowhere is your ingenuity more apparent than in your deadliest invention, the atlatl or spear thrower. It is a deceptively simple device, often just a grooved piece of wood or antler about the length of your forearm with a hook or spur at one end. But this humble stick is a revolution in force. It works as a lever, an extension of your arm. By fitting the base of a light, flexible spear or dart into the hook and launching it with a powerful snap of the wrist, you dramatically increase the arc of your throw. This multiplies the speed, distance, and kinetic energy of your projectile to a terrifying degree. The scientific evidence from modern reconstructions is staggering. A skilled user can launch an atlatl dart at speeds exceeding 90 miles per hour, generating enough force to penetrate the thick hide of an elephant from a safe distance. It is the Paleolithic equivalent of a firearm, a weapon that transforms you from a high-risk ambush hunter into a long-range death machine. What future archaeologists discover of your world is almost exclusively stone because it is all that survives the destruction of time. But you live in a world of rich organic materials. You have mastered wood, bone, ivory, and antler. You carve intricate harpoon heads with multiple barbs that separate after striking a fish. You know which plant fibers to twist into strong, flexible rope for making nets and traps. You are a master of material science. And perhaps the most impactful of all these small inventions is also the most humble. It's a quirky piece of technology that changed everything, the eyed needle. Around 25,000 years ago, your people learned to carve a tiny, perfect hole in the end of a sliver of polished bone. This tiny innovation, the bone needle, allows you to abandon clumsy leather strips and instead use fine sinew as thread. It is the invention that makes tailored clothing possible, allowing you to stitch together multiple pieces of hide into fitted, layered garments that trap air and provide incredible insulation. It's a small thing that makes an enormous difference, a tool that lets you conquer the cold, not with raw power, but with intelligence and a delicate touch. With this revolutionary toolkit in hand, you are ready to pursue the ultimate prize. Let's imagine the scene. A small herd of woolly mammoths has been spotted moving through the river valley. The air in your camp vibrates with a nervous, focused energy. A mammoth hunt is not a spontaneous act of aggression. It is a meticulously planned military operation, a symphony of courage and intellect where a single error can result in instant death. This is a battle of intelligence over strength. A full-grown mammoth is a 10-foot-tall, 6-ton fortress of muscle and fury. You cannot hope to challenge it in a direct physical confrontation. Your victory depends on strategy. Your greatest weapon is your knowledge of the terrain. You and your fellow hunters have a map of this territory burned into your minds. A map that includes every cliff, every ravine, every patch of dangerous marshy ground. You have observed this herd for days, studying its movements, learning the behavior of the matriarch, and identifying a younger, less experienced individual as your target. Your plan is to separate it from the herd and drive it towards a location where its size and power become a liability, a narrow passage between two rock faces or the edge of a steep, hidden drop. This is a game of terrain and psychology. Famous kill sites like La Côte de Saint-Brelade on the island of Jersey show evidence of Neanderthals, and later, your own people using this exact strategy, driving entire herds of mammoths off cliffs repeatedly over thousands of years. It is an ancient and lethally effective technique. The hunt begins not with a roar, but with a whisper. You are part of the ambush team, concealed, silent, and downwind. The other part of your group, the drivers, begins its work. They are spread out in a wide arc behind the herd, and they use sound and misdirection, a sudden shout, the crack of two stones struck together, the distant flicker of a torch. It's just enough to make the animals nervous, to gently pressure them, to channel their immense weight in the direction you have chosen. The herd begins to move slowly at first, then with more urgency. The young mammoth you targeted becomes confused, disoriented by the subtle pressure, and in a moment of panic it breaks from the safety of the group and lumbers directly towards your trap. Now the critical moment. As the beast enters the kill zone, the hidden hunters rise as one, but you do not charge. You keep your distance, a safe 30 or 40 yards away. Your atlatls are already loaded. In a single coordinated motion, you and your companions cast your darts. The air fills with a series of sharp, whizzing sounds. The light, flexible spears, powered by the immense leverage of the spear throwers, fly with incredible speed and accuracy. They are not designed to kill instantly, but to wound, to weaken, to drain the animal of its strength. The first volley strikes the mammoth's flank and shoulder. It bellows in pain and confusion, spinning to face a threat it cannot quite locate. Before it can charge, a second volley is already in the air. This is what makes your technology so revolutionary. It is a battle fought at a distance, a battle of projectiles, not a desperate close-quarters stabbing match. After a long, tense and exhausting struggle, the great beast finally collapses. But the work has just begun. The kill is only the first act. Now the entire camp descends on the carcass. It is an immense task that requires the coordinated labor of everyone. The skinners arrive with their razor-sharp flint blades, making precise, practiced incisions to remove the thick, heavy hide. The butchers follow, their larger stone cleavers and knives hacking through muscle and sinew, dismembering the colossal animal into manageable pieces. Every part is precious. The meat is cut into long strips to be smoked and dried. The organs are set aside. The long bones are cracked open with heavy stones to access the priceless marrow inside. It is a long, bloody and exhausting process that can last for a day or more, a communal effort to transform this fallen giant into the fuel that will keep your people alive for another season. As you process the great mammoth kill, you are not the only predators watching from the tree line. There is another hunter on the Ice Age tundra, one that shares your intelligence, your social complexity, and your taste for the same prey. It is the grey wolf. For millennia, your two species have been locked in a state of wary competition. You are rivals, two intelligent pack hunters circling the same herds of caribou and bison. You respect their endurance and their ferociously efficient teamwork. They respect your cunning and your deadly, sharp-edged tools. You are mirrors of each other, the apex carnivores of this frozen world, and you keep a careful, respectful distance. A lone human is a target for a wolf pack, and a lone wolf is a target for a human hunter. But something in this ancient relationship is beginning to shift. It does not happen overnight. It is a slow, cautious dance that likely plays out over thousands of years. Perhaps it begins with a lone, less fearful wolf discovering that the edge of your camp is a reliable source of discarded bones and scraps of meat. It learns to read the rhythms of your life, approaching the firelight only when the danger has passed. Or perhaps it starts with a hunter finding a den of wolf pups whose mother was killed. On impulse, driven by a flicker of the same compassion you show your own injured kin, the hunter brings a pup back to camp. The pup grows up on the periphery of your society, not quite wild, not yet tame, a living bridge between two worlds. This is not just a story. The scientific evidence confirms that this partnership was being forged in the depths of the Ice Age. In the Goyet caves in modern-day Belgium, archaeologists found the skull of a canid dated to 31,700 years ago. It was not quite a wolf and not yet a dog as we know it. It had a shorter, broader snout and a wider brain case, the first subtle skeletal signs of a population of canids beginning to diverge under the influence of humans. This was a proto-dog, a living relic of the moment your two species decided to join forces. And as scientists are still debating the exact timeline and location of dog domestication, was it a single event or did it happen independently in multiple places across Eurasia? Finds like this prove it was a part of your upper Paleolithic world. The advantages of this alliance are a game changer for both of you. The proto-dogs that join your hunt are a living sensory array. Their noses can detect the scent of prey from miles away, long before your own senses could pick it up. Their ears can hear the snap of a twig in the deep woods, warning you of an approaching cave bear or a rival human clan. They are your trackers and your sentinels. In return, you bring your lethal technology. The dogs can corner a caribou, but it is your atlatl thrown dart that brings it down with swift, deadly efficiency. You become a composite predator, a superorganism. You have combined the supreme senses and stamina of the wolf with the abstract intellect and projectile weapons of the human. Together, you are an unstoppable force. This is more than a simple partnership of convenience. It is a deep interspecies bond. Some theories suggest that early humans and dogs learned to hunt together by watching each other's eye movements and body language, forming a unique interspecies bond of communication. You learn to read the subtle flick of an ear, the posture of a tail. They learn to watch your gaze and follow the direction you point. You are not just master and servant, you are partners, two intelligent minds working in concert. It is the first and perhaps the most profound friendship between our species and another, a bond of trust forged in the firelight and sealed in the blood of the hunt. The Great Mammoth Hunt is an epic, a story you will tell around the fire for generations, but it is not your daily reality. These colossal beasts are a rare and dangerous prize. Your true survival, your day-to-day existence depends on your flexibility. You are a master of your entire environment, and your menu is as broad and varied as your ingenuity allows. When the giants are not to be found, you do not despair. You simply shift your focus, turning your attention to the true staple of life on the Ice Age tundra, the vast thundering herds of caribou and wild horse. These animals are the pulse of your year. Unlike the mammoths, they are constantly on the move in great seasonal migrations, and your life is tied to their journeys. Hunting them requires a different skill set. They are smaller, faster, and more alert than a mammoth. You cannot rely on overwhelming a single animal with brute force. Instead, you use your intellect and your deep knowledge of their behavior. You set your ambushes in narrow valleys or at river crossings where their movements are predictable. Your new partnership with the proto-dogs is invaluable here, as they can help you track and channel the herds. It is for these swift targets that you may have even developed the first primitive bows, a weapon that trades the sheer power of the atlatl for a faster, flatter trajectory. At many of your upper Paleolithic sites, the archaeological evidence is overwhelming. Caribou bones often account for over 90% of all animal remains. They are your daily bread, the reliable resource that fuels your society. Your knowledge extends beyond the plains and into the rushing icy waters of the rivers. You know that for a few precious weeks each year, the rivers transform. They turn from clear streams into a solid, writhing mass of silver and red as the salmon, driven by an ancient imperative, return from the sea to spawn. For you, this is a time of incredible abundance. You wade into the shallows with your specialized leicesters, elegant three-pronged spears carved from antler, and deftly impale the fish. Your people string nets woven from countless yards of nettle or willow bark fibre across the channels, trapping hundreds of fish with each tide. The riverbank becomes a processing plant, with everyone working to gut, smoke, and dry the enormous catch, creating a store of precious protein-rich food that will last for months. You supplement these great harvests with 100 smaller acts of foraging and fouling. You are an expert trapper, setting cunning snares for Arctic foxes and hares, valuing them as much for their warm pelts as for their meat. You know the nesting seasons of the local birds, and you undertake perilous climbs up cliff faces to gather eggs from the ledges. And in the fleeting warmth of the Ice Age summer, when the landscape explodes into a brief riot of green, you are a master botanist. You gather handfuls of sweet berries, mushrooms from the damp earth, and edible flowers. You know which roots must be dug from the ground, and more importantly, how to prepare them. The evidence of processed starchy roots on grinding stones suggests you knew how to make certain plants edible, and possibly even create a type of rudimentary flour or paste. You would pound and grind these tough starchy tubers between two stones, leaching out any toxins and breaking them down into a digestible food source. It's a simple, laborious technology, but it reveals a sophisticated understanding of food processing, a culinary chemistry that allows you to unlock calories from sources that others might overlook. All of this food, this rich fuel of fat and protein, is what powers your internal furnace. But in a world where the temperature can drop to 40 degrees below zero, that furnace alone is not enough. You are at your core a tropical primate. Your nearly hairless skin, a superb adaptation for cooling down on the African savanna, is a deadly vulnerability here. You are a naked ape, and without a second artificial skin, the Ice Age would kill you in minutes. Clothing for you is not about modesty or fashion. It is your primary shelter, a life support system you must create and maintain with incredible skill and effort. It is the single most important technology for your survival in this frozen land. At the heart of your sartorial revolution is that tiny, miraculous tool we spoke of earlier, the bone needle. Before its invention, your ancestors could only drape themselves in stiff, uncured hides, clumsy coverings that offered poor insulation and severely restricted movement. But with the ability to sew, you become a master tailor. You can now cut and shape hides into complex three-dimensional forms that fit the contours of the human body. Your toolkit is a complete tannery and workshop. After a kill, the hides are painstakingly scraped clean of all flesh and fat with your specialized flint end scrapers. Then comes the laborious process of tanning to make them soft and pliable, a task you likely achieve by working animal fats and sometimes even the animal's own brain into the skin. Once cured, you cut the soft leather into precise patterns, and with your delicate bone needle and a thread of tough, flexible sinew, you begin to stitch. The results are not the crude, shapeless garments of popular imagination. Your clothing is a sophisticated, multi-layered system. The best evidence for this comes not from scraps of leather, which rarely survive, but from the silent, astonishing testimony of the dead. The 24,000-year-old burials at Sungir, a site near Moscow, show individuals laid to rest in clothing so elaborately decorated with thousands of hand-carved ivory beads that archaeologists have been able to reconstruct their entire outfits. These were not simple tunics. The patterns of the beads reveal tailored trousers, long-sleeved shirts, and magnificent hooded parkas. They wore moccasin-like boots and even mittens. It is a stunning, immaculately preserved portrait of your Ice Age style. This is clothing built on a principle that modern mountaineers would recognize instantly: layering. You understand that the secret to staying warm is trapping air. Your inner layer is worn with the fur turned inward, made from the soft, dense pelts of smaller animals like the Arctic fox or rabbit, providing a cushion of warm, insulating air directly against your skin. The outer layer is made from the tough, waterproof hides of caribou or horse, with the hair facing outward to shed snow and block the wind. You likely invented the first true parka, a hooded outer garment that could be cinched tight at the face, wrists and waist to seal out the cold. And we get a tantalizing glimpse of this world from your own art. Some cave art appears to depict figures wearing hooded garments, their faces peeking out from the unmistakable outline of a parka hood. These simple, haunting images scratched into a cave wall 30,000 years ago are like the first fashion sketches in human history, a direct visual link to the way you presented yourself and protected yourself from the killing cold. All this technology, the deadly atlatl, the life-saving needle, is useless without the most important technology of all, your society. You do not survive the Ice Age as a lone wolf or a small nuclear family. You survive as a clan. Your success is built upon your ability to form larger, more cohesive, and more complex social groups than any human who came before. While your Neanderthal neighbours likely lived in smaller, more isolated family bands, you have learned to cooperate on a grander scale. Your communities are likely composed of several family units, numbering anywhere from 50 to perhaps 150 individuals. This is a critical mass of people large enough to organize massive hunts, defend against predators, and create a robust network of shared knowledge and mutual support. At the heart of your world is the seasonal camp. This is not just a temporary shelter. It is a bustling, vibrant village, a hub of industry and social life. The most spectacular of these are your famous mammoth bone huts. Imagine arriving at such a settlement on the vast open tundra. You see a cluster of large domed structures, their frameworks built from the interlocking jaws, ribs, and massive curving tusks of mammoths. These bone skeletons are then covered with layers of stitched hides, creating sturdy, well-insulated homes that can stand up to the howling Arctic winds. The scientific evidence for these incredible structures is breathtaking. The remains of a settlement in Mezhyrich, Ukraine, contained several of these huts, ingeniously constructed from the bones of more than 150 mammoths. Inside the space is organized. A central hearth provides warmth and light. There are designated areas for sleeping on soft furs, for butchering meat, for napping flint, and even pits dug into the permafrost for storing food. This organized space reflects an organized society. Within your clan, there is a complex division of labor, a tapestry of specialized skills. There is the master flint knapper, an individual whose hands can read the soul of a stone, producing blades of unparalleled sharpness. There are the lead hunters who hold the migration routes of the herds in their minds. There are artisans who spend patient hours by the fire, carving intricate patterns into antler or shaping ivory into beads. There are the elders, both men and women, who are the keepers of your stories and your laws. And there are the people, mostly women, who manage the camp, prepare the food, care for the children, and process the hides, performing the constant vital work that holds your world together. This intricate society is bound together by a web of kinship, both real and created. You understand a fundamental biological truth. For a small population to remain healthy, it cannot become isolated. To avoid the dangers of inbreeding, you must marry outside your immediate group. This practice, known as exogamy, is the foundation of your political world. By exchanging mates with other clans in the region, you do more than just ensure genetic diversity. You create alliances. You turn strangers into relatives. The clan downstream, where your sister now lives, is no longer a potential competitor, but a trusted ally you can turn to in times of hardship. This is how you build a nation, not of cities and kings, but of interconnected families scattered across the vast landscape. But what was the nature of this society? The exact nature of their social structure is unknown. Was it egalitarian, or did they have chiefs and shamans? The lavish burials of some individuals suggest that at least some form of social hierarchy existed, hinting that certain people, great hunters, wise elders, or powerful shamans, were afforded a special status, both in life and in death. Those alliances you forge by exchanging mates are the bedrock of a much larger world. Your clan, nestled in its valley, is not an isolated island of humanity. It is a single point of light in a vast constellation of interconnected communities that stretches across the entire European continent. You are part of the first great social network, a web of relationships and obligations that functions as an invisible highway for goods, ideas, and information. Though you may never travel more than 100 miles from where you were born, your world is connected in ways that are both deep and surprisingly far-reaching. You see the evidence of this connected world in the materials you use every day. While your local flint is good, you know that the flint from a particular quarry 3 valleys to the east is exceptional. It is finer grained, more predictable to knap, and holds a sharper edge, and so you trade for it. A bundle of perfectly tanned fox pelts might be exchanged for a dozen high-quality flint cores. The clan you trade with might in turn trade some of those cores to a group further on. In this way, a piece of stone from a single hillside can travel hundreds of miles, passed from hand to hand, a tangible link in a long social chain. The most compelling proof of these networks comes in the form of small, beautiful objects that serve no practical purpose. The mainstream fact is that seashells from the Mediterranean and Atlantic coasts have been found at sites deep in the interior of Europe, hundreds, even thousands of miles from the nearest ocean. Imagine a child living on the frozen Ukrainian steppe, wearing a necklace of shells that still hold the faint, salty scent of a sea they will never see. These objects are precious, not just for their beauty, but for the journey they have taken. They are symbols of distant places and the social connections that bind your world together. This trade is not commerce in the modern sense. You are not trying to get the best price or maximize your profit. The purpose of the exchange is the relationship itself. The gift of a seashell necklace is a promise. It is a way of saying we are connected. We are allies. These networks are your ultimate insurance policy, your social safety net in a world of brutal uncertainty. If the caribou herds fail to appear in your valley one winter, you can travel to the camp of an allied clan carrying gifts and call upon their support. You can ask for a share of their food, not as a beggar, but as a partner in a reciprocal system of trust that has been built and maintained over generations. These invisible highways carry more than just stones and shells. They are conduits for your most valuable commodity, information. Along these trade routes travels the news of the world. Which herds are moving where? Which areas are experiencing drought? Which new groups of people have been seen on the horizon? New technologies like a better way to haft a spear point or a more efficient way to stitch hides can spread like wildfire across the continent, and so do your ideas. The most fascinating evidence for this is the quirky tidbit of the Venus figurines. These are small, stylized statues of female figures, often with exaggerated features carved from ivory, stone, or bone. What is so remarkable is that stylistically, similar figurines have been found in a vast swathe of territory, from the Pyrenees Mountains in France all the way to Lake Baikal in Siberia. This suggests a shared set of beliefs, symbols, or rituals that united people across a staggering geographical and cultural distance, all connected by this ancient, intricate web of human interaction. This great web of connection you have built is for more than just survival. It is for sharing a new and profound part of your existence, a spiritual life. Your mind, now capable of abstract thought, has begun to ask the great and terrifying questions that will haunt humanity forever. What is the meaning of the flashing light in the sky during a storm? Where does the sun go at night? And the most pressing question of all, what happens to us when we die? In the face of these profound mysteries, you begin to weave your first stories, your first rituals, your first religions. You are developing a cosmos, a map of the unseen world of spirits, ancestors, and gods. The clearest window we have into this dawning spiritual world is in the way you treat your dead. For you, a deceased member of your clan is not just a body to be disposed of. Their passing is an event of immense social and spiritual significance, an occasion for complex and deeply meaningful ritual. You bury your people with purpose. You place their bodies in carefully dug graves, often orienting them in a specific direction, perhaps facing the rising sun. You do not send them into the next world empty-handed. You surround them with objects of meaning and value, tools for their journey and ornaments for them to wear. One of the most famous and poignant of these is the so-called Red Lady of Paviland, a skeleton discovered in a cave in Wales. We now know the remains are of a young man, but he was buried with extraordinary care around 33,000 years ago. His entire body was covered in a thick layer of powdered red ochre, a vibrant blood-colored mineral pigment that stained his bones for eternity. He was laid to rest with decorative ivory rods and a mammoth skull placed near his head. The red ochre is a recurring theme in your burials across Europe, a powerful symbol thought to represent the color of blood and therefore of life itself, perhaps intended to magically reanimate the body in the afterlife. The effort you pour into these final rites is staggering, and it speaks volumes about the depth of your belief. The most powerful scientific evidence for this is once again the incredible 24,000-year-old burials at Sungir. Here, two children, a boy of about 12 and a girl of about 9, were laid to rest head to head. Between them, they were adorned with over 10,000 painstakingly carved and polished mammoth ivory beads, which would have taken thousands of hours to produce. They were also accompanied by full-sized, straightened mammoth tusk spears, ivory daggers, and other precious items. You would not expend this level of artistic and economic effort, this incredible wealth, on a purely practical act. This is a clear and unambiguous statement that you believe these children are going somewhere, on a journey where they will need their status, their weapons, and their beauty. Your spiritual world is likely animistic. You believe that the world is alive with spirits. It is not just humans who have a soul. The mammoth you hunt, the river that gives you fish, the ancient oak tree, even the flint you knap into a tool, all possess a spirit, a consciousness that must be respected and sometimes appeased. The mediator in this complex spirit world is the shaman, a special individual who can travel between the physical and spiritual realms to heal the sick, to ensure a successful hunt, or to guide the souls of the dead. Yet, even with all this evidence, the precise meaning of your rituals remains elusive. The meaning of red ochre in burials is hotly debated. Was it purely symbolic, or did it have a practical purpose like preserving the body or deterring scavengers? We see the ritual, we see the care, but the true nature of your faith remains a whisper in the deep, silent caves of time. Your spiritual life is not just for the dead, it is for the living too, and it takes place in the most sacred and terrifying cathedrals on your planet, the deep caves. I want you to come on a journey, follow the flickering light of a tallow lamp, its wick of dried moss sputtering in a hollowed-out stone filled with rendered animal fat. You leave the world of sunlight and wind behind, squeezing through a narrow fissure in the limestone cliff. You crawl on your hands and knees, the rough, cold stone scraping your skin. The air grows still, heavy and damp, tasting of minerals and an ancient, undisturbed silence. The last echo of the outside world fades and you are plunged into an absolute darkness, a perfect black that your eyes can never adjust to. The only thing that exists is the small dancing flame in your hand, casting huge, monstrous shadows that leap and writhe on the walls around you. You go deeper into the belly of the earth and then your small light reveals them. The walls are not dead stone, they are alive. Great beasts surge and thunder across the rock in strokes of red and black. A herd of wild horses, their manes flying, gallops across a vast panel. A powerful bison, its head lowered to charge, seems to emerge from the wall itself. You, the artist, did not just paint on a flat surface. You used the Earth's own canvas. You saw how a natural bulge in the rock already held the powerful shoulder of the bison. You used a deep, natural crack in the stone to represent the bloody wound from a spear. You have collaborated with the cave itself, using its contours and textures to give your creations a breathtaking three-dimensional life. In the flickering, unsteady lamplight, these animals seem to move, to breathe. These are the great art galleries of the Ice Age. The cave paintings of Lascaux and Chauvet in France are some of the most famous examples of your Paleolithic art, dating back as far as an incredible 36,000 years. They are a testament to your artistic vision and your technical skill. Your palette is the earth itself. The deep velvety blacks are made from charcoal from your fires or ground from manganese dioxide, a black mineral you mine from the ground. The rich reds, vibrant yellows, and soft browns are all shades of ochre, iron-rich clays that you dig up and pulverize into fine powder. You mix these pigments with a binder, animal fat, plant sap, or just spit and cave water to create a thick, durable paint. You apply it with your fingers, with pads of moss and fur, or for those fine, hazy outlines, you blow the dry pigment through a hollow bird bone, creating the world's first airbrush. But why do you do it? Why do you venture into these dangerous, inaccessible depths to create these masterpieces that so few will ever see? This is the greatest mystery of all. These are not just decorations for your home. You do not live in these deep, dark places. The theories are many. Perhaps it is a form of hunting magic, an attempt to capture the spirit of the animal on the wall to ensure success in the hunt. Perhaps these are the records of shamanistic visions, paintings of the spirit animals encountered on a trance journey into the other world. Maybe they are simply stories, a way of recording your history and mythology, or perhaps they are territorial markers, a sign to other clans that this sacred place belongs to you. The honest truth is, we don't know. The meaning is lost to time, and amongst the great animal paintings, you leave a more personal and more haunting signature. You place your hand flat against the wall, and with a bone blowpipe, you spray a cloud of red or black pigment around it. When you lift your hand, its ghostly outline, a negative print, remains. It is a sign that says, I was here, but many of these handprints hold a quirky and unsettling tidbit of a mystery. They appear to be missing fingers or joints of fingers in specific repeated patterns. Is this a chilling record of the rampant frostbite and accidents of your brutal lives? Or is it something more deliberate? Some scholars speculate it could be evidence of ritual sacrifice, a finger offered to the spirits. Others suggest it could be a form of sign language with the bent fingers spelling out a silent message on the cold, dark wall. Whatever the reason, these spectral mutilated hands reach out from the deep past, a profoundly human and deeply enigmatic greeting from your lost world. The sacred, silent darkness of the painted caves is only half of the story. Your new complex mind is not just a visual one, it is also auditory. To understand the power of your first music, you must first imagine your soundscape. For most of your life, the world is either silent or filled with the sounds of nature. There is the endless mournful howl of the wind across the frozen tundra. There is the distant cry of a wolf pack, the crack of ice on a frozen river, the low earth-shaking rumble of a migrating mammoth herd, and the sharp, startling crack of thunder. These are the only sounds you know. There is no engine noise, no distant traffic, no electronic hum. Your world is one of profound quiet. Into this silence, you introduce a revolutionary new sound, music. The first notes, intentionally crafted and arranged, must have felt like pure magic, and we know you made them. Your most breathtaking musical inventions are your flutes. Imagine a craftsman sitting by the fire, taking the long, hollow wing bone of a giant griffin vulture. With a sharp flint bearing, they painstakingly carve a blowing hole and then with mathematical precision drill a series of finger holes down its length. The result is not a simple whistle, but a sophisticated musical instrument capable of playing complex melodies full of joy and sorrow. The scientific evidence for this is undeniable. Archaeologists have found exquisitely crafted flutes made from bird bone and mammoth ivory at sites like Hohlfels in Germany, dating back an astonishing 40,000 years. These are the oldest undisputed musical instruments in the world, a clear sign that music was not some late invention, but a fundamental part of your early human experience. Your orchestra was likely much richer than just these delicate flutes. You stretch a cured caribou hide over a wooden frame, creating the first resonant drum, its deep, booming pulse echoing the beat of a human heart. You tie a long cord to a flat, weighted piece of wood or bone, a bull roarer, and swing it around your head, creating a low, vibrating, otherworldly hum that seems to call the spirits from the very air. And of course, there is the simplest instrument of all, your own body. The rhythmic stomp of dancing feet on the hard-packed earth of the cave floor, the sharp, percussive clap of many hands striking in unison. Music for you is inseparable from rhythm, and rhythm is inseparable from dance and ritual. This is not just entertainment. Music is a powerful social technology. It is a form of communication that bypasses language, speaking directly to the emotions. When you sing, chant, and move together in time, your heartbeats and even your breathing begin to synchronize. This shared experience erodes the boundaries between individuals, builds powerful bonds of trust, and forges a deep sense of collective identity. It is a social glue, a tool for uniting your clan and preparing you for the cooperative challenges of the hunt or the emotional catharsis of a burial rite. It is another way you weave your individual threads into a strong, resilient social fabric, and it seems you chose your concert halls with great care. The quirky tidbit is that some of your painted caves appear to have been chosen specifically for their acoustic properties. Modern researchers specializing in archaeoacoustics have entered these caves and discovered that the areas with the most paintings are often the same spots with the most powerful and pleasing acoustic resonance. Imagine it. You are deep underground, the flickering lamplight making the painted beasts dance on the walls, and from the most resonant chamber comes the sound of a bone flute. Its high clear notes echoing off the stone, amplified and enriched by the cave itself. It is a complete, immersive, multi-sensory experience, a true cathedral of sound and light designed to overwhelm the senses and transport you to the world of the spirits. All of this, your art, your music, your vast social networks, is new to this continent. For a moment, let's rewind the clock. Before you arrived, before the sound of your flutes and the flicker of your lamps in the deep caves, this world belonged to someone else. You are the newcomers, the invaders. The Neanderthals are the natives. When your ancestors first set foot in Europe, the Neanderthal ancestors had already been there for more than 200,000 years. They had seen the glaciers advance and retreat multiple times. They had survived countless volcanic winters and catastrophic climate shifts. This was not just a place they lived, it was their world, a home they had shaped and been shaped by for a span of time so vast it is difficult for us to even imagine. It is crucial that you erase from your mind the old cartoonish image of the brutish, club-dragging caveman. That picture is a relic of early prejudice, not modern science. The Neanderthals you are about to meet are the masters of this cold, harsh world. They are also expert hunters of large game, capable of bringing down bison, wild horses, and even mammoths with their heavy fire-hardened spears in terrifyingly close-quarters combat. They have an intimate knowledge of the landscape, and they are masters of fire, using it not just for warmth and cooking, but likely for clearing landscapes and hardening their wooden tools. Their own stone tool technology, the Mousterian, is a testament to their intelligence. A collection of versatile, efficient flakes, points, and scrapers that served them perfectly well for millennia. And their world was not devoid of culture. Slowly, piece by piece, archaeology is revealing the glimmers of a Neanderthal inner life. We now have evidence that they collected eagle talons, carefully notching them to be worn as pendants or ornaments. They seem to have used mineral pigments like red ochre, perhaps to decorate their bodies. They collected unusual fossils and minerals that had no practical purpose, suggesting they had an eye for beauty and curiosity, and most profoundly, they buried their dead. Unlike other animals, they did not simply abandon their deceased. In caves across Europe and the Middle East, they dug graves and intentionally interred the bodies of their companions. The most famous and debated piece of evidence for their sentiment comes from Shanidar Cave in modern Iraq, where the skeleton of a Neanderthal man was found surrounded by clumps of ancient pollen. This led the excavator to propose the beautiful and romantic flower burial theory that his clan had laid him to rest on a bed of wildflowers, a final tender gesture of mourning. While this interpretation is now debated, the fact of the deliberate burial itself speaks volumes. They understood that death was a significant event worthy of ritual. Yet, for all their intelligence and success, there was a difference in their way of being. Their mind, it seems, was of a different kind. While you are a whirlwind of change and innovation, their culture was marked by a deep and profound stability. Their Mousterian toolkit remained largely unchanged for over 200,000 years. This wasn't a failure, it was a sign of a perfectly successful adaptation. Their minds were perhaps more conservative, focused on the here and now, on perfecting a proven way of life. Yours, by contrast, seems restless, always experimenting, always innovating, obsessed with symbols and networking. This fundamental difference in cognitive style set the stage for one of the great unresolved debates in human origins. The extent of Neanderthal symbolic capacity is one of the hottest topics in paleoanthropology. Were their burials and ornaments evidence of a human-like mind or just simple non-symbolic behaviours? When you finally meet them, you are not just meeting another tribe, you are meeting another way of being human. So you have arrived. Your clan has found a good valley, a sheltered rock overhang with a commanding view of the river below. But you are not the first people to recognize the value of this place. As you clear the floor of your new home, your tools uncover the remnants of an older fire, the discarded bones from a different hunt, and a stone tool that is not of your making. It is a Mousterian flake, the signature of the Neanderthals. You are sleeping in a place where they once slept. This is the beginning of the Great Overlap, a period that will last for several thousand years in some parts of Europe. This is not a single dramatic event. It is not an invasion. It is a long, slow, and complex process of two human worlds beginning to occupy the same space. You now walk through a shared landscape. The game trails you follow hold the faint hours-old tracks of a Neanderthal hunting party. The berry patch you harvest from may have been visited by a Neanderthal family just last season. You are ghosts in each other's worlds, your lives running in parallel, sometimes separated by miles, sometimes only by minutes. The population of the entire continent is still incredibly small, perhaps only a few tens of thousands of people in total. In this vast, empty world, it would be possible to go your entire life without ever seeing one of the other people. For much of the time, your two species likely existed in a state of mutual avoidance. Two different cultures with different ways of being, content to keep to your own territories. But in the places that truly mattered, the prime caves with the best shelter, the river crossings where the caribou herds were most vulnerable, the hills containing the finest flint, encounters were inevitable. These resource hotspots would have drawn both your peoples in, and here you would have been forced to interact. We can see the faint echoes of this in the earth itself. At archaeological sites, we find layers of your history stacked on top of each other like pages in a book. A layer of earth containing your elegant Aurignacian blades might be found, and then digging deeper, archaeologists find a layer with Neanderthal Mousterian tools. Sometimes the pattern reverses, suggesting a Neanderthal group moved back into a site after you had left. You were not just replacing them, you were in a long, slow dance for control of the best real estate. The nature of these interactions is a deep mystery, but there are tantalizing clues that it was more complex than simple avoidance or conflict. The most fascinating and quirky tidbit is a puzzle known as the Châtel-Perronian industry. Found in France and Spain, it is a tool culture that is clearly associated with Neanderthals. But it looks different. It contains elements of their old Mousterian technology, but also new things like long curved stone blades and personal ornaments, things that look suspiciously like they were inspired by your own toolkit. This raises a profound question. Did the Neanderthals see your new technology and begin to imitate it, learning from the newcomers? Or in a remarkable coincidence, did they independently invent these new tools at the very moment you arrived? It's a puzzle that hints at a relationship of acculturation, a world where the two human cultures were not just ignoring each other, but watching, learning, and borrowing from one another across a blurry cultural frontier. The clues you find in the earth, the layered tools, the borrowed technologies hint at a complex relationship, but they are ambiguous, open to interpretation. For more than a century, this was all we had, leaving the true nature of your encounter with the Neanderthals shrouded in mystery. But recently, a scientific breakthrough of epic proportions has given us an answer. One that is more profound and more intimate than anyone ever dared to imagine. The most definitive evidence of your interaction is not buried in the caves of France. It is buried in the cells of almost every person alive today. It is inside you. This discovery is the result of a scientific quest that was once considered impossible, the sequencing of the entire Neanderthal genome. For years, a team of scientists led by the brilliant Swedish geneticist Svante Pääbo undertook the painstaking task of extracting and reconstructing the complete genetic code of a Neanderthal from tiny fragments of DNA recovered from ancient fossilized bones. It was a monumental challenge, a battle against the decay of time itself. But they succeeded. And when they compared this ancient genetic blueprint to our own, they uncovered a secret that had been hiding in plain sight for 40,000 years. The mainstream fact now firmly established is that all modern non-African populations on Earth carry between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA. Take a moment to absorb the meaning of that. It is not a metaphor, it is a biological reality. Your own genome right now contains identifiable functional genes that are a direct inheritance from a Neanderthal ancestor. This is the unambiguous, irrefutable proof that the story of your two peoples was not just one of replacement, but also one of union. This genetic echo is the legacy of a moment, or perhaps many moments, of incredible intimacy. At some point in some sheltered valley or by a shared fireside, a modern human like you and a Neanderthal saw each other not as competitors, not as alien others, but as partners. They had children, and crucially, those children were healthy and fertile, and they grew up to have children of their own, passing that unique mixture of DNA down through the generations. This was not the creation of a failed, sterile hybrid like a mule. This was a successful mixing of two distinct but compatible human lineages. It was a family reunion at the species level. And we know these events were not just a distant one-off occurrence in the Middle East before your people spread out. The scientific evidence for more recent encounters is stunning. A 40,000-year-old jawbone of a modern human known as Oase1, found in a cave in Romania, yielded a remarkable genetic surprise. When scientists sequenced its DNA, they found that this individual had a Neanderthal ancestor just 4 to 6 generations back. That means his great-great-grandparent was a full Neanderthal. This was not an ancient, diluted inheritance. This was a direct, personal and recent family connection happening right in the heart of Ice Age Europe. In light of this, the entire narrative of your relationship has to be rewritten. It cannot have been a story of pure, unrelenting warfare. The ghost in our genes tells us with absolute certainty that there must have been periods of peace, places of tolerance, and moments of acceptance, partnership, and perhaps even love. The ghost in your genes tells a beautiful and undeniable story of connection, but it is not the only story. Coexistence does not always mean peace, and love and war are not mutually exclusive. The same species that is capable of forming deep bonds of empathy is also capable of shocking violence. The genetic evidence proves that bridges were built between your two worlds, but the archaeological record whispers of a darker side of conflict, competition, and violence. The truth of your relationship with the Neanderthals is not a simple romance. It is a complicated, messy, and deeply human affair. The root of this conflict is the same thing that drives all conflict: competition for limited resources. The Ice Age tundra feels vast and empty, but the places that can truly support life, The sheltered caves, the valleys with reliable water, the hills with high-quality flint are rare and precious. For millennia, the Neanderthals had these prime locations to themselves. But now you have arrived, and your population is growing. Every new child born into your clan needs to be fed. Every new family needs a place to shelter from the winter storms. The pressure is building. The river crossing that once supported one hunting party must now support two. The comfortable cave that housed one family is now coveted by another. The world is beginning to feel crowded, and in this tense new reality, your Neanderthal neighbours are no longer just a curiosity. They are your direct competitors. We can see the scars of this conflict written on their bones. In Shanidar Cave, the same place as the famous flower burial, archaeologists found the skeleton of another Neanderthal man known as Shanidar III. His ninth rib shows a clear and specific injury. It is a deep cut, a puncture wound made by a thrown projectile that entered his chest from the left side. The angle and nature of the wound suggest it was not from a thrusting spear used in close quarters hunting, but from a light, long-distance projectile. A weapon. In other words, very much like the kind you throw with your atlatl. The bone shows signs of healing, meaning he did not die instantly, but lingered for weeks, the stone point still lodged in his chest before finally succumbing to his injury. At another site, Saint-Césaire in France, a Neanderthal skull tells an equally grim story. The forehead bears a long, deep gash that has healed over. This was a brutal face-to-face blow with a sharp stone blade that sliced through the scalp and deep into the bone. The individual survived the attack, the bone knitting itself back together, but they would have carried the scar for the rest of their life as a permanent reminder of a moment of terrible violence. These are not hunting accidents, these are the unmistakable signatures of interpersonal conflict. It is a deeply ingrained part of human psychology to divide the world into us and them. And for you, the Neanderthals are the ultimate them. They look different, they sound different. Their ways are not your ways. Despite the moments of peaceful interaction and interbreeding, it would have been easy to see them as rivals, as obstacles, as something less than human. But even with this compelling evidence of injury, we must be cautious. Interpreting these injuries is difficult. Was the Shanidar wound from a Cro-Magnon spear, or was it from another Neanderthal in a dispute? Without the weapon itself, it remains a compelling but unproven case. Still, the pattern is suggestive. The arrival of your people on the continent seems to coincide with a new and deadlier chapter in the long, quiet history of the Neanderthals. This evidence of violence leads us to the edge of an even darker possibility, to the ultimate human taboo, cannibalism. It is a deeply unsettling subject, but it is a behavior that has surfaced in many different human societies throughout history for many different reasons. Sometimes it is for survival in the face of desperate starvation. Sometimes it is ritualistic, a way of honouring the dead or absorbing their wisdom. And sometimes it is the final brutal act of warfare, a way to utterly dominate and desecrate the body of a defeated enemy. The question we must now face is, did this happen between your people and the Neanderthals? In a cave in France called Les Rois, archaeologists were excavating a layer of earth left behind by your people. It was filled with the typical remnants of your life, your stone tools, your animal bones, the charcoal from your fires. But among the bones of the caribou and horses you hunted, they found something else. It was the jawbone of a Neanderthal child. and when they looked at it under a microscope, they saw a series of fine parallel lines etched into its surface. These were not random scratches. They were the unmistakable marks of a flint blade used to carefully and systematically strip the flesh from the bone. The scientific evidence here is as precise as it is grim. Forensic anthropologists have spent decades studying the cut marks left on bones. They can distinguish between the gnawing of a carnivore, the accidental scrapes from skinning an animal for its pelt, and the deliberate methodical slices of a butcher intent on dismembering a carcass for its meat. The marks on the Neanderthal jawbone from Leroy fall squarely into the last category, and the most chilling detail of all is that they are identical in placement and type to the cut marks found on the caribou bones scattered all around it in the very same layer. The implication is unavoidable. Your people in this place at this time processed the body of a Neanderthal child in the exact same way they processed a hunted animal. What this act means is harder to decipher. Was this nutritional cannibalism? Perhaps the child was killed in a conflict, and in the harsh calculus of Ice Age survival, a source of protein was a source of protein regardless of the source. Or was it something more symbolic? In many cultures, consuming a part of a powerful enemy is believed to grant you their strength, their courage, their spirit. Perhaps this was the ultimate act of domination. But before we cast you as uniquely monstrous, we must look at the evidence from your own behaviour. The quirky tidbit is that at sites like Guff's Cave in England, archaeologists have found incontrovertible evidence of your people practicing cannibalism on other Cro-Magnons. The skeletons of your own kind show the same patterns of butchery with bones cracked open for their marrow. Even more astonishingly, some of your skulls were meticulously cleaned and modified to be used as drinking cups. This reveals a crucial piece of context. This brutal behaviour was not something you reserved only for the Neanderthals. It was, it seems, a part of your own cultural repertoire, a dark thread woven into the fabric of your society. But we must end with a word of extreme caution. This line of evidence is incredibly thin. The jawbone from Leroy is a powerful clue, but it is just one bone. The idea that you systematically hunted Neanderthals for food is a sensational one, an epic story of prehistoric monsters, but the actual evidence is limited to just a few suggestive finds at a few specific sites. It proves that it happened at least once, but it does not prove it was a common practice. The truth is likely less cinematic and more sporadic, a dark, desperate and ugly feature of an already brutal and competitive world. It is easy hearing these dark stories of conflict and cannibalism to imagine the Neanderthals as helpless victims, a gentle ancient people swept away by a tide of hyper-violent newcomers. But this would be a profound mistake. You are not hunting a passive or timid species. In any direct confrontation, the Neanderthals are arguably one of the most formidable and dangerous opponents your people have ever faced. Forgetting this, even for a moment, would be a fatal error. They are not retreating from you without a fight. They are defending their homes. Remember their immense physical strength. They are shorter than you, but they are denser with thicker bones and a barrel-chested torso that anchors incredible upper body power. And they have the home turf advantage on a continental scale. You are an intruder in their world. They have been here for 200,000 years. They know the location of every ambush point, every hidden water source, every game trail. Their minds are a perfect living map of this landscape, a map built over thousands of generations. You are learning the territory. They are the territory. Imagine a one-on-one confrontation. You stand tall, your atlatl giving you a crucial advantage of range. You can strike from a distance they cannot match, but if they can close that distance, if they can get inside your reach, the fight changes in a terrifying instant. A cornered Neanderthal with a heavy fire hardened thrusting spear is a nightmare of close quarters power. Their entire body is built for that single devastating lunge, a burst of explosive strength designed to drive a spear point through the thick hide of a bison. In the close confines of a forest or a narrow cave entrance, your long-range weapons become clumsy and their raw, compact power becomes the decisive factor. Now imagine a battle for a prime rock shelter, one that their clan has used for centuries. Your growing group needs a new home for the coming winter, and you have decided to take it. You approach the cave mouth and they are waiting for you, a silent line of grim, determined defenders. The fight, when it comes, is a chaotic, brutal affair. It is a flurry of heavy spears, sharp stone blades, and the raw, desperate strength of two different kinds of human fighting for the most basic thing in the world, a safe place to sleep. The battle is short, vicious, and terrifyingly personal. There is no guarantee that you will be the one to walk away, and yet, despite their strength, despite their courage, and their deep knowledge of the land, they are ultimately losing this long, slow war of attrition. They can win the battle, but they are losing the continent. Why? Because this is not a contest that will be decided by individual strength alone. They are facing an opponent, you, who possesses three decisive long-term advantages that they cannot overcome. You have better technology in the form of your deadly long-range projectile weapons. You have larger, more extensive social networks which act as a safety net and a system for reinforcements. And most critically of all, you have a higher birth rate, a demographic engine that is slowly but surely flooding their world with your people. They are fighting a battle on three fronts, and on each they are destined to lose. The battle for a single cave is a dramatic, bloody affair, but the real war is a quieter and far more decisive one. It is a war of attrition, a demographic struggle fought not with spears, but with babies. This is the front on which you have the most overwhelming and insurmountable advantage. Your people are simply better at making more people. It's a subtle, almost invisible power, but over the course of centuries, it is the force that will change the face of the continent forever. This higher fertility is likely the result of several of your other advantages working in concert. Your more sophisticated technology, like the long-range atlatl and perhaps the bow, makes hunting slightly less dangerous. Fewer of your hunters are gored or trampled, meaning more parents survive to raise their children. Your wider, more flexible diet, including the reliable bounty of fish and small game, may have provided a more stable nutritional base, helping women to support the immense caloric demands of pregnancy and nursing. Your larger social networks mean that a new mother has more support, more helping hands to care for the infant. All of these small factors add up, likely leading to lower infant mortality and a shorter time between births. While a Neanderthal mother might have a child every 4 or 5 years, you might be able to have one every 2 or 3. It doesn't sound like much, but over time, the consequences are staggering. Some population models suggest that as you established yourselves in Europe, Your population density grew to be as much as 10 times greater than that of the resident Neanderthals. For every one of them, there were eventually 10 of you, and the cold, hard mathematics of population dynamics are unforgiving. The mainstream fact is that even a small 2% demographic advantage for one population over another will result in the complete replacement of the smaller group within 1,000 years or so. 1,000 years sounds like a long time, but on the scale of prehistory, it is the blink of an eye. You don't need to wage a war of extermination to win. You just need to have slightly more babies, and have slightly more of them survive to have babies of their own. Time will do the rest. From the Neanderthal perspective, this must have felt like being caught in a slow, inexorable tide. In your grandfather's time, the tall strangers were a rumour, a rare sighting at the edge of the territory. In your father's time, they had a camp in the next valley. Now, in your time, their camps are in every valley. Every year there are more of them. They hunt the same game, they fish the same rivers, they occupy the best shelters. Their children's laughter echoes in places that were once silent. Your world is shrinking not through a series of grand battles, but through 1,000 tiny encroachments, a slow and steady demographic swamping that you are powerless to stop. This shrinking world creates a final tragic trap. As your population expands, the Neanderthal groups become smaller and critically more isolated from one another. The long-distance networks that allowed them to find mates from other clans begin to break down, cut off by your presence. They are forced to turn inward. This leads directly to an inbreeding trap. With a smaller gene pool, harmful mutations can become more common, reducing their overall fitness. Their ability to adapt to new diseases or changing conditions is compromised. They are caught in a demographic death spiral. A smaller population leads to inbreeding, which leads to a less healthy population, which leads to an even smaller population. The tide is rising, and for them there is no high ground left to retreat to. Just as this slow demographic war is reaching its tipping point, a new and terrifyingly powerful player enters the game. This new enemy is not human. It has no strategy, no malice, and no mercy. It is the climate itself. The period when your two peoples coexist is not a time of stable, predictable cold. It is one of the most volatile and violently unstable climate periods in recent Earth history. As if the growing competition between you were not enough, the world itself now begins to fall apart, pushing both your populations to the absolute brink of survival. You begin to experience bizarre and extreme weather swings. A generation might enjoy a relatively mild, stable climate only for their children to be plunged into a sudden, catastrophic deep freeze that lasts for centuries. These are not slow, gradual changes. They are brutal and swift. Scientists now call the most severe of these episodes Heinrich events. They are triggered on the other side of the world when the Great Laurentide ice sheet over North America becomes unstable. A colossal armada of icebergs, a fleet of frozen mountains, breaks off and surges into the North Atlantic. As this vast quantity of fresh cold water pours into the ocean, it disrupts the warm currents that act as Europe's hot water bottle. The heat is switched off within the span of a single human lifetime. Average temperatures in Europe can plummet by as much as 15 degrees Celsius. The effect on your world is apocalyptic. The already sparse forests die back. The grasslands wither, turning into a barren polar desert. The life-giving river systems freeze solid for much longer each year. For the great herds of mammoth, bison and caribou that you both depend on, it is a catastrophe. Their food sources vanish, and they are forced to either migrate to distant, unknown refuges or crash into local extinction. The entire food web, the very foundation of your existence, collapses. The scientific evidence for these events is written with stunning precision in the ice cores drilled from the Greenland ice sheet. These cores provide a year-by-year climate record for the past 100,000 years, and the chemical signatures in the ice show these dramatic cold snaps lining up perfectly with the final critical millennia of the Neanderthals' decline. These Heinrich events are the ultimate stress test. They are a brutal, indiscriminate filter that will sort the adaptable from the merely adapted. When your entire way of life collapses in the space of a few decades, the human group that survives will be the one that is most flexible, most innovative, and has the best social safety net. It is no longer just a competition between you and the Neanderthals. It is a desperate three-way struggle for survival against a world that has become actively hostile to all human life. This has led to one of the most fundamental questions in all of human prehistory, a true chicken and egg problem. The primary cause of Neanderthal extinction is fiercely debated. Was it climate change, competition from modern humans, or a combination of both? Some argue the climate dealt the fatal blow, that the Neanderthals were already on their last legs, and these catastrophic cold snaps simply pushed them over the edge. Others maintain that modern humans were the real cause, that the Neanderthals would have weathered these climate storms as they had before, if not for the added relentless pressure of your growing population. The most likely truth, of course, is that it was a perfect and terrible storm. A devastating 1-2 punch of climate collapse and a new unstoppable human competitor. When the world collapses, it is not the strongest who survive, but the most adaptable. The Heinrich events are a brutal filter, and you are perfectly equipped to pass through them, while the Neanderthals are not. Your success in this apocalyptic landscape comes down to the three key advantages you have been honing for millennia: your flexible technology, your vast social safety net, and the symbolic glue that holds your world together. First, your toolkit. The Neanderthals are masters of the big game hunt. Their entire society and technology are built around the pursuit of large terrestrial herbivores. But when the Heinrich events cause those herds to vanish, their specialized world collapses. They are left with a toolkit that is ill-suited for the new reality. You, on the other hand, have a toolbox full of options. When the mammoths disappear, you turn your attention to the smaller, faster breeding animals that can survive in the harsher conditions. You use your bone needles not just for sewing, but for making fine, strong nets to trap rabbits and Arctic foxes. You take your expertise in weaving plant fibers and create nets to pull fish from the icy rivers, a food source the Neanderthals seem to have rarely exploited. Your specialized harpoons carved from antler become a lifeline. Your flexible, diverse technology allows you to pivot, to create a new way of life on the fly. While the Neanderthals, with their more conservative, generalized toolkit, struggle to adapt to a world where their primary food source has simply walked away. Second, and perhaps most importantly, is your social safety net. Remember those vast networks built on trade and kinship that stretch across the continent. In a stable world, they are a bonus. In a collapsing world, they are everything. When a Heinrich event turns your entire region into a frozen desert, your clan is not necessarily doomed. You have options. You can call upon your allies. You can send messengers to your kin group 300 miles to the south in a valley that was less affected by the climate shift and ask for help. You can move your entire community temporarily or permanently into their territory, knowing that the bonds of mutual obligation will ensure you are welcomed. The Neanderthals living in their smaller, more isolated groups have no such recourse. When their local ecosystem fails, they have nowhere to go. They are trapped. Your networks act as a continent-wide insurance policy, allowing your species to absorb regional catastrophes, while the Neanderthals must face each disaster alone. Finally, the glue that holds these life-saving networks together is your shared symbolic culture. How do you maintain trust and a sense of shared identity with people you only see a few times in your life? You do it through shared symbols, shared stories, shared rituals. The Venus figurine you carve is not just a piece of art, it is a cultural password, an instantly recognizable sign that you and the stranger you are meeting share a common understanding of the world. Your cave paintings, your elaborate burials, your music, all of it reinforces a collective identity that transcends the local group. It is this symbolic framework that allows you to build and maintain the large, resilient societies that are your ultimate advantage. It is the software that runs your social hardware. You are not just surviving as a collection of clever individuals. You are surviving as a culture. And faced with the perfect storm of this new hypersocial competitor arriving just as the climate is spiraling into chaos, the long, lonely 200,000-year reign of the Neanderthals finally comes to an end. The end, when it comes, is not a single dramatic event. It is a long, slow fading out, a story that takes millennia to play its final somber note. As your people continue to thrive and expand, buoyed by your resilient culture and growing numbers, the world of the Neanderthals shrinks. Year by year, valley by valley, their ancient territory is lost. You are not always driving them out with spears. Often you are simply filling a vacuum they have already left, a space made empty by a failed hunt or a harsh winter they could not endure. They are pushed further and further to the geographical margins of the continent, clinging on in isolated pockets, the last refugees of a dying people. You find them in the rugged mountains of the Caucasus, the wind-swept coasts of the Atlantic, and for their very final act on the sun-drenched southern tip of the Iberian Peninsula. Let us travel to their last known home on Earth, Gorham's Cave, a great yawning sea cave at the foot of the Rock of Gibraltar. Imagine the scene. This is no longer the frozen world of the Ice Age tundra. Here, the Neanderthals look out not over an endless plain of ice, but over the sparkling blue expanse of the Mediterranean. The air is warmer, the landscape is greener. It is a sanctuary, a final stronghold where they can hold out against the pressures of your expansion and the chaos of the climate. For a few more millennia, they survive here. A tiny, relict population at the very edge of the world. The scientific evidence from excavations here paints a poignant picture of their final days. The layers of earth in Gorham's Cave show that Neanderthals were living here until as recently as 28,000 years ago, thousands of years after they had vanished from the rest of Europe. The remains of their meals show that they were not stubborn, inflexible hunters to the end. They were adapting. They hunted seals that hauled out on the rocks. They harvested mussels and limpets from the shoreline, and they climbed the slopes of the rock to gather and roast pine nuts. They were intelligent, resourceful, and resilient right up to the very end, which makes their ultimate fate all the more tragic. Now picture the final fire. Perhaps it is just a single family left, an elderly couple, their children long gone. They sit at the mouth of the great cave, the setting sun painting the sea in shades of orange and red. They look out at a world that is no longer theirs. The smoke from your distant fires can now be seen in the next valley. The sounds of your language drift on the evening breeze. They are alone, the last of their kind, on a planet that now belongs to a different sort of human. They are the final whisper of a story that was 200,000 years long. When their fire finally goes out, it will not be lit again. This is what extinction means. It is not just the death of individuals. It is the death of a lineage, the final, irrevocable silencing of a unique way of being human. It is the loss of their language, their stories, their knowledge of the world, their way of seeing the stars. It is the end of a second human experiment that had been running successfully for a period of time 5 times longer than the entire recorded history of our own species. For the first time in millennia, the continent of Europe is home to only one kind of people, you. And so you find yourself in a world that is suddenly profoundly empty. For the first time since your distant ancestors first rose up on 2 feet on the African savanna, there is now only one kind of human on the planet. You are it. It wasn't just the Neanderthals. In the east, the mysterious Denisovans, another cousin species we are only just beginning to understand from fragments of bone and DNA, have also vanished. On the island of Flores in Indonesia, the tiny so-called hobbits of Homo floresiensis are gone. The long, messy and diverse family tree of humanity has been pruned down to a single solitary branch. You are utterly and completely alone. What does this mean for you, for your psychology, for the future of your species? Standing on this quiet continent, do you feel a sense of triumph? Or is there a new and unsettling silence, the absence of a presence that had always been on the periphery of your world? For millennia, your identity was shaped in relation to another. You were the tall ones, the newcomers, the ones with the strange language. The Neanderthals were the old people, the strong ones, the original inhabitants. Now there is no other to define yourself against. There is only us. Does this new reality change you? Does it create a sense of mastery? The feeling that the world now truly and completely belongs to you? Or does it breed a new kind of cosmic loneliness, a quiet ache for a world that was once more complex, more diverse? You have lost another way of thinking, another perspective on the world, another set of answers to the great questions of existence. The human conversation has become a monologue. Your new status as the lone hominin is a profound departure from the norm. The mainstream fact is that for most of human evolutionary history, multiple hominin species coexisted on the planet at the same time. The world you have just inherited, a world with only one human, is a very recent and incredibly unusual state of affairs. For millions of years, the planet was a patchwork of different human experiments, a garden of forking evolutionary paths. Now, all those other paths have come to a dead end. It is tempting to look at this outcome as the inevitable result of a march of progress, a simple story where the better, more advanced human was always destined to win. But the truth is far more contingent and less comforting. You did not win because you were inherently superior in some absolute cosmic sense. You won because your particular set of adaptations, your flexible toolkit, your long-distance social networks, your symbolic culture, your slightly faster reproductive rate, happened to be the perfect answer to the specific set of challenges posed by the volatile world of the late Ice Age. Had the climate been more stable, had your population expanded more slowly, the outcome could have been entirely different. It is not difficult to imagine an alternate timeline, a parallel universe where a Neanderthal descendant now sits by a fire contemplating the faint ghostly traces of the strange tall people who came to their continent once long ago and then vanished forever. Having inherited the Earth, you now have to survive its greatest transformation, the brutal frozen world that forged your people. The world of ice and mammoth that you so perfectly mastered begins to die. The climate, which had been so violently unstable, now swings in the other direction. The great thaw begins. The colossal ice sheets that had held a continent in their grip begin to melt and retreat, grinding their way back to the north. The sea levels rise dramatically, flooding the low-lying plains and reshaping the coastlines of Europe. And the Ice Age tundra, the vast open grassland that was the foundation of your entire world, disappears. In its place, a new and unfamiliar landscape emerges, dense, thick, impenetrable forest. The great herds of megafauna, unable to adapt to this new closed-in world, vanish one by one, heading into the long night of extinction. Your world is gone. Everything you knew, every skill you perfected is now challenged by this new, warmer, wetter reality. The art of the mammoth hunt is now useless. The open plains you once strode across are now a wall of trees. You are once again forced to adapt or die, and so you do. You become the people of the forest and the shore. Your descendants learn to hunt the shy red deer in the deep woods. They build canoes to fish the now teeming rivers and estuaries, and they learn the secrets of this new green world. Millennia pass, and then another revolution comes, a new set of ideas from the East, agriculture. You learn to clear the forests, to plant seeds, to domesticate animals. You trade your nomadic hunter-gatherer existence for the settled life of a farmer. You build the first villages, then the first towns, and eventually the first cities. You become the people of the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the people of history. So what happened to you, the tall, robust Cro-Magnon hunter of the Ice Age? You did not disappear. You did not go extinct. You simply became us. Your genes are the foundational bedrock of all subsequent European populations. The blood that runs in your veins is the same blood that runs in the veins of the Celts, the Romans, the Vikings, and the people of Europe today. Genetic studies of ancient European remains show a direct, unbroken line of ancestry from the first Ice Age hunter-gatherers to modern-day Europeans, though with later admixtures from Neolithic farmers migrating from Anatolia and steppe pastoralists from the east. You are the deep ancestral stream into which these other rivers later flowed. But as your lifestyle changed, so did your body. The quirky tidbit is that the unique, powerful features of the Cro-Magnon physique began to fade over time. The shift to agriculture in particular had a surprising and initially negative effect on your health. The new diet, heavy on grains, and lacking the rich variety of proteins and nutrients of your hunter-gatherer past, was less nourishing. The bones of the first farmers show a marked decrease in average height, a reduction in bone density, and an increase in diseases related to malnutrition. The life of a farmer, with its repetitive, back-breaking labor, was in some ways even harder than the life of a hunter. The towering, robust giants of the Ice Age slowly transformed into the smaller, more gracile people of the modern world. You had conquered the planet, and now the consequences of that conquest were reshaping your very skeleton. Your body may have changed, but the story written in your genes has one final, astonishing chapter to reveal. Let us return one last time to the ghost in our genome, to that 1 to 4% of your DNA that is a direct inheritance from the Neanderthals. For a long time, this was seen as little more than a curious footnote, a faint echo of an ancient, long-forgotten tryst. But we now know it is so much more than that. This is not random, leftover genetic junk. It is a living, functional legacy that was likely preserved in your DNA for a very simple reason. It helped your ancestors survive. When your people first arrived in Europe from Africa, you were entering a totally new environment with a whole new set of challenges. One of the most dangerous of these was disease. The local pathogens, the viruses and bacteria of Ice Age Europe were completely alien to your immune systems, which had been primed to fight African diseases. The Neanderthals, on the other hand, had been living with and building up defences against these European microbes for 200,000 years. The scientific evidence shows that when your two peoples interbred, you received a vital genetic gift. Some of the most prominent Neanderthal genes that remain in our DNA today, like certain toll-like receptor genes, are crucial components of our innate immune system. Interbreeding with Neanderthals was like getting a genetic shortcut, a software update for your immune system that gave you a ready-made defense against the new diseases of this new land. The benefits didn't stop there. Other Neanderthal genes that have survived in your DNA are linked to the production of keratin, the protein that makes up our skin, hair, and nails. These genes may have influenced skin pigmentation, helping your ancestors adapt to the lower levels of ultraviolet light in northern latitudes, or prompted the growth of thicker hair, providing better insulation against the cold. In essence, you received a genetic care package from the native people, a suite of ready-made adaptations to a continent that was still new and hostile to you. But this ancient inheritance comes with a complicated modern twist. These genes were selected because they were advantageous in a Paleolithic environment. But our modern world is radically different. This creates a mismatch. Some of the same Neanderthal immune genes that protected you from Ice Age pathogens are now linked to an overactive immune response in our modern hyperclean environment, leading to a higher risk of allergies like hay fever. Other Neanderthal genetic variants are associated with an increased risk for conditions like type 2 diabetes, depression, and even blood clotting disorders. These were traits that may have been neutral or even beneficial 40,000 years ago, but in the context of our modern diet and lifestyle, they have become liabilities. So the next time you look in the mirror, I want you to remember this. The texture of your hair, the way your skin tans in the sun, the way your body fights off a cold, even your predisposition to certain moods, all of these things are in some small but measurable way a gift from the Neanderthals. They never truly vanished. They were not a failed branch of the human family tree that was simply erased. A vital part of them was absorbed into the great river of our own species. A part of them survived in you. They are the silent, ancient partners in your genetic story, a living link to a world of ice and giants, a world that it turns out is not nearly as distant as you might think. And so we end our journey where we began in the deep past by the flickering light of a fire. The great beasts are silent now. The glaciers are gone. The songs of the bone flutes have faded, and the other people, the ones who shared your world, are now only ghosts in your DNA. Your long journey through the Ice Age is over. What a story it has been. A story of a creature born under a warm African sun who used its wits and its will to conquer a world of ice. A story of breathtaking creativity, of hands that could paint masterpieces in the dark and coax music from the bones of birds. And it has also been a story of brutality, of a struggle for survival so fierce that it pitted human against human, brother against brother, in the first great contest for dominion of the earth. This story of the Cro-Magnon and the Neanderthal is not a tale of monsters or aliens. It is a family story, the oldest and most consequential family story of all. We have pieced it together from the faintest of clues: a scarred bone, a string of beads, a handful of pollen, a cut mark on a jaw, a sequence of letters in our own genetic code. But we must be humble. The deep past is a vast, dark cavern, and our science provides only a few small, flickering lamps to illuminate it. For every question we can answer, a dozen more arise from the shadows. We are always learning, always refining the story, always discovering new details that challenge what we thought we knew. The conversation with our ancestors is a quiet one, and we must listen very carefully. But what is truly certain is that their story is, in the most literal sense, our story. The same fundamental human impulses that drove your ancestors are the ones that drive you now. The fierce, protective love for your family and your group, the restless curiosity to see what lies beyond the next hill, the deep innate need to create, to make art, to tell stories, to find meaning in the great silent cosmos. And the darker impulses too. The capacity for competition, for tribalism, for seeing another group as them rather than us. All of it is your inheritance, a complex and contradictory legacy passed down through thousands of generations. You are the result of all these ancient loves and epic struggles, the living arc of a story that began long ago in a world of ice and giants. And now the fire in the cave is burning low, its embers glowing a soft and gentle orange. The stories are all told, and a deep quiet settles over the valley. The wind that whispers through the pines outside is no longer a threat, but a soft, lulling sound, a cradle song from the ancient earth. The shadows on the wall are no longer menacing beasts, but just soft, gentle patterns dancing themselves to sleep. You can feel the warmth of the furs around you, the comfort of a safe place, the gentle pull of exhaustion after a long journey. It's time to let the images of the past fade away, to let the mammoths and the hunters drift back into the mists of time, becoming as distant and as harmless as a half-remembered dream. All that matters now is the gentle rhythm of your own breathing, a slow, steady tide pulling you further and further away from the shore of wakefulness. There is nothing left to do, nothing left to see except the quiet, peaceful darkness that waits behind your eyes. Every breath is a little heavier, every muscle a little softer as you allow yourself to sink down into that deep, comfortable silence. The long Ice Age night is over, and you are safe and warm in your own time, in your own bed. drifting now, just drifting into a peaceful and well-deserved rest.